All right, welcome to GothCast. This is episode 44, and I'm Dr. Sanders.
And I'm that man with a face for radio, James.
Like that. I mean, not very... Well, you know, it says a lot about who you are as a person.
Yep, good old radio face.
Yeah. Well, today we're going to be talking about a band. You know, on GothCast, we haven't covered a ton of bands who exclusively started in the 90s or, you know, like first released their albums in the 90s. In fact, I can barely even think. I think maybe Typo Negative, maybe one of the few only ones that we've covered.
Oh, yeah, Typo Negative. Good band.
Yeah, they're amazing.
Amazing work.
I like. That's, if anybody listened to that episode, was all I did was gush about them the entire time. I was like, yeah, this album isn't that great, but it's amazing. But today we're actually going to be talking about a band that has exclusively, well, didn't exclusively, but started releasing albums in the 90s and is a step away from 80s goth into more of what the 90s scene was doing, and has a really dedicated fan base, still kind of niche in its own way. I feel like still it's a band that a lot of people have heard about, but then haven't really listened to albums from, or they, they still have a weirdly niche status. It's hard to describe, but the band is going to be London After Midnight.
Good band. I listened to the 4 albums they had while, preparing for this episode, and they have a very, very good sound to them, and look forward to discussing it on this episode of GothCast.
Me too. And so let's start off with a little bit of history. You know, Sean Brennan is the voice behind London After Midnight, and basically like what you would equate like Trent Reznor to Nine Inch Nails. Like most of the albums and most of the work is done by him. Then he pretty much has like a rotating cast of people who are his live band members. He's pretty much the one you need to talk about when you're talking about London After Midnight. And yes, London After Midnight is named after the movie London After Midnight. It is a
black and white thriller, if I recall.
Yeah, it's starring Lon Chaney, the original Lon Chaney, but it's lost. It's a lost film. Like, there's no known copies of it. You can actually, I think you can buy a DVD that has it like production stills, like in a slideshow, and then they kind of recreate the movie. But it's one of those movies that was kind of lost. I think they weren't really into film preservation back in the day, so...
Yeah. One of those films just lost time, like those movies I did back in my wilder days in college.
That's right. They'll resurface like decades from now. But yeah, a little bit about Sean Brennan. I thought this was kind of interesting. There's, especially because a lot of our listeners probably, really like the 80s and stuff. I thought it was really funny that one of the things that Sean Brennan, so I found all this information is actually put out by him. I want to make this clear. This isn't like something I made up, but it's my anger some of our fans that Sean Brennan, lead singer, guitarist of London After Midnight, and his dislikes that he has on his website, the things that he dislikes, is the 1980s and most everything associated with it.
Blasphemy.
Conservatives, vanity, greed, ego, hunters, animal breeders, guns, people who worship the military, people who don't know the difference between facts and opinion, racist, homophobia, ignorance. So I don't have a problem with the rest of that, but yeah, I can't believe he says dislikes the 80s and most everything associated with it. Seeing, especially when we get in the episode, I think a lot of his music has some...
It feels kind of 80s.
Yeah, especially one album in particular. Yeah, he talks about how drugs have never appealed to him. He says, I'm a total virgin to any drugs, actually. Never been interested in them. Rarely even drink alcohol. Maybe like once a year at this point.
What a square.
I don't really drink. But yeah, I am quite square. Very pointy angles. Yeah, and he also talks about how, this is another one of those examples of where we have a band, like pretty much every band that we've ever covered on GothCast who's like super goth, saying that they're not goth or that they don't want to be associated with goth. We did it with The Cure, said that they're we're not goth. I know who is it? I think Bauhaus said we're not goth or something like that. Peter Murphy. I know that I've made a video and Peter Murphy in the interview clip says like he's never heard of goth.
Well, if you want my opinion, if it looks like a duck and quacks like a duck and puts on black makeup like a duck, it's a goth duck.
It's a goth duck. Yeah, I agree. He says, "Oh, we're just a rock band with eccentricities." Yeah, he says that basically categories exist as a shadow of the corporate world. Their view is music needs to be classified for the consumer as a means to sell and divide people. Yeah, it says, but yeah, in an interview from 2000, he says, what are your true feelings on goth scene, and do you consider London After Midnight goth? He says, no, London After Midnight aren't goth as goth is defined today, which is primarily a fashion scene rather than music scene. Oh.
Oh,
Well,
add some ointment to that sick burn.
it's so funny, especially with the year 2000. I mean, because all the stuff with new goth and pastel goth is today, where that's literally just based off of fashion and not music. But it's like, the year 2000. I mean,
we all know that real goth is not on the outside; it's on what's inside.
It's on the inside,
or what's not inside. It's just feelings.
I like that. It's pretty good. I thought, give you some ideas about Sean Brennan and kind of his views. He actually is
an interesting specimen, to say the least.
I like that specimen. Yeah, I think it's cool. He has a lot of opinions that people might think are harsh. He isn't afraid to talk politically, and you got to give credit to that. I mean,
yeah, it's like in a world that we have today, talking politically can get you killed these days.
That is true, actually.
Like, politics is a very touchy subject, so you gotta respect the guy who says, "I'm not afraid to get political."
Yeah, I agree with that. But yeah, so we're gonna get into the first album here. So the band had been performing for a few years before this, but the first release, and it's actually first album, and you can find there's like other versions of it and different things, but we're talking about the one you're gonna find most commonly that was released. I think it's like an amended one because there is.
Yeah, it was originally released in '92, and then they re-released it with bonus tracks in '03 and '08.
Yeah, and there is like a cassette version or some release of it, and it has a song called October on it.
Oh,
and Sean Brennan, he has addressed that song, and he said, is there a song called October by London After Midnight? He says, oh, that's a song from another band I was playing in, or
yeah, I think you replaced it with another song.
Yeah, he did, and so some versions have swapped around track listings and stuff. So just letting you know, but we're gonna talk about the basic songs like we usually do, like the first release of it.
Yeah, I would say
the first official release, not the cassette one.
Yeah, and then I would say that probably for the best bang for your buck, though, you're probably going to want to look at the 2003 re-release. It comes with a lot more tracks than the originals.
Yeah, we'll get into this. So yeah, this is selected scenes from the end of the world. This was released in 1992, and keep in mind this was self-released on London After Midnight or Sean Brennan's own record label until 1995 when it got some distribution in Europe, and it wasn't even released in North America, I think, by a record label
until like '98.
Yeah, so it's crazy. They were kind of touring and performing on that album and for that long. Oh, and by the way, I do know, and everybody always posts this photo of John Koviak from Propaganda Magazine. I don't know if you're familiar with him or not. But on like all my social media, people always post pictures of John Koviak all the time. And they're like, oh my gosh, she's so beautiful. And they always say John Koviak of London After Midnight. I like to point out, John Koviak wasn't on any albums. He's just really beautiful. And I always see that photo. The problem is I'm sick of seeing pictures of John Koviak right now because everybody always posts the same like 5 photos of him. Not that he's not a good looking guy or anything, but I'm just saying, like, I always see like John Koviak of London After Midnight. It's like, well, he wasn't really on any releases, and I don't think there's any footage of him playing with the band, and yeah, I don't know.
It's a mystery.
Yeah.
It's a mystery, Scoob. We gotta solve it.
I like that. Scooby Doo. Oh man, that Addams Family Scooby Doo thing. Maybe I'll talk about that. So we're getting into selected scenes from the end of the world, and I'll say right off the bat, I really like this album.
It had some good songs on it. Songs like when I re-listened to it with you, there was a couple songs that I picked out. And I know I've heard this before, way back in the day,
like Sacrifice,
but
right?
I could not place it. Like I swear, I think I've heard Sacrifice. It was, I think.
Yeah.
I heard that like I think on the end credits of some movie somewhere, and it just escapes my mind right now. And it's driving me nuts.
Yeah. Oh, that was my text sound.
This just in.
I know, right? Yeah, I don't know. Actually, I should look up see if Sacrifice is actually on soundtrack some, but I didn't.
Shame on you.
I know, right? But yeah, I'll say that in terms of goth music, I actually feel that London After Midnight does take a lot of things. It's funny because he says, Sean Brand says he dislikes everything from the '80s, but this album sounds.
It sounds very '80s.
It sounds very, very late '80s. I think the guitar actually the way the guitar sounds actually reminds me of like almost like hair metal sometimes because it's
a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, like with the way it is very metal-y.
Yeah,
it's hard to describe.
It's like the first album has a really good sound, which is I think one of the reasons why it stands out from some of the other albums.
Yeah, it takes a lot of the '80s albums, like the classic kind of '80s sound, and does something different. It's a little bit more metal, and that makes more sense because it was '90s went into like industrial and stuff, and
also as a kind of a jab towards Mr. Brennan, it says here on the Wikipedia page for the album that its genre is gothic rock or dark wave.
I know.
Take that, Sean.
I'm so sorry.
Wikipedia would disagree with you,
Wikipedia
sir.
disagrees. I'm sorry, and when Wikipedia is the
use it for all your school papers. Trust me, can't go wrong.
That's right. I'll say the sound of London After Midnight. Actually, I was trying to rack my head to think of what this album sounds like, and it really reminds me of a cross between like Rosetta Stone and Human Drama. And I know those are not the most well-known goth bands.
Yeah.
And trust me, I think that it sounds really similar. I was trying to think of like the way he talks, the way he sings, and it really reminded me of those two. Like you take those two bands because you have electronic drums, you have a very strong like bass, and it actually there's like almost like slap bass at some points in this. It's like I like what they do a lot with it, like Black Cat and stuff.
Yeah.
But you have a really reverby, distorted guitar, and guitar is a big part of this band.
You know what actually it reminds me of? It doesn't remind me of a particular music. It reminds me of a movie. I think of The Crow whenever I hear it.
I wonder if he was on that soundtrack. Actually,
I maybe.
Look up the Crow soundtrack. I'm just curious.
I'm going to do that right now. Well, you keep going.
Talking about particular songs that I really like and things that I guess reminded me of other bands. Actually, Revenge, it opens up with like a Hitler speech, and it reminds me of the song Democracy by The Damned, although Democracy came out way later. But it really reminds me of Christian Death with the Repent lyrics, and it's mostly driven by bass and drums, and the guitar is like really noisy and stuff. And I will say that the vocal style, no,
it's not on there.
But the vocal style really reminds me of Christian Death at times, where he's almost like talk singing, and it's really poetic. It almost is like he's just reading poetry, and it doesn't seem like he's like belting out like these really extreme vocal performances. How'd you like the song Black Cat?
It's pretty good actually. Like it's like the rest of the album's like kind of mellow, but Black Cat kind of sticks out a bit.
Well, I think it's funny because that's the song I think that really is the most 80s sounding. It has like the chunky like 80s bass on the chorus, and I love it. I really love the song. Yeah,
bass really can, is kind of like a particular taste of mine when it comes to music. I like heavy bass.
Yeah, and this album actually really has it, and I really like the instrumentation on it. The drums, I guess they are like programmed in drums or like electronic drums or something.
Cheater.
I know. But I really like the energy on this album. It seems like it's really passionate music. And I like that he wasn't afraid to go like full-on horror movie, like spooky kind of thing. A perfect example is the song Claire's Horrors. It has these really spooky lyrics, Walk Down Me with a Cemetery. I like how it has almost like a punk sort of influenced guitar. Still has a lot of reverb and stuff, but it's really heavy, and I like it. And it's really aggressive. Pretty much the only complaint I really have about this album is the vocals at times they
kind of fade a little bit.
Well, they're a little relaxed. And by that, I mean, like, you'll have this song where it's this really, like, epic keyboard stuff, and it just almost seems like a little bit, almost like the band Christian Death somewhere. It's almost like talk singing at some points.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I agree on that.
Yeah, and it's not bad. I'll point out it's not bad. Like I actually really like the style of this album. I think it works for what it is. I think the vocals are just where they need to be. They're really raw. They're not. There's not like a ton of layering and stuff. So it still sounds like almost like a live band kind of,
A little bit, yeah.
sort of, but still really good. I can't believe he says, like I hate everything from the '80s because it sounds so much like a late '80s, early '90s album.
The '80s gave us like so many cool things, though. Like a lot of Schwarzenegger movies, for one.
That's true. What's the
Friday the 13th franchise started in 1980.
Oh, you know what album this reminds me of? The Damned's Phantasmagoria. And I love that album because this album is so not afraid to be spooky. While Sean Brennan may say he hates goth music or he doesn't want to be associated with goth music, this album is like one of those albums I think fits perfectly for like Halloween kind of stuff. Even his next album doesn't. He wasn't afraid to go with over-the-top lyrics, really poetic, really dark kind of stuff. In fact, the lyrics, pretty much every single song is like a love song. Some of them are kind of whoa, but but I put some in here that I thought were like, that's interesting. But the song Nightmare has like the super long keyboard intro. It's a really dark, romantic love song. And apparently the girl at the end dies from having sex or something. I swear, because it talks about licking my lips. I tasted her salt. Then she sat up and gasped and clutched at her breast. I thought she was coming. I'd never have guessed. As she grew pale, as white as a flower, she collapsed to the floor and was dead in an hour. Like, what?
Hot.
What? So I guess like if you try to like break down the lyrics for a lot of these songs, I'm like a lot of them are like really sexual. So it's basically, literally, it's basically an album of like love songs, really dark goth love songs, and it's good. I like it, but sometimes whenever you break down lyrics, you're like, it's kind of weird.
Yeah, there ain't no love like goth love.
That's true. That's very true. I'm glad you said that because it's so true. But of course, one thing that we couldn't skip over on this album is Spider and the Fly. And this is one of the most well-known songs by Lone After Midnight. I'll just say right back. Great bass, drum, everything in this album is awesome. I think it's one of the better vocal performances on this album. Kind of reminds me of like if the Sisters of Mercy had done like better 90s material, then...
Shots fired.
Yeah, I know, right? Vision thing is... but I think this is like what it could have been, like if it was much better. Parts of it really remind me of like Typo Negative, like the keyboards and stuff and everything, and the slow... Like there's a slow breakdown part with like all this guitar feedback and everything. And if there's one thing that's awesome that I love about Lone After Midnight is anything that sounds like Typo Negative to me, that's a huge plus. And there's a lot of things about Lone After Midnight that are like Typo Negative, gothic romantic love songs that also have a really weird turn and like could be seen as some kind of strange event that happens with it.
True.
Having reverby or like aggressive guitars and having electronic drums, because Typo Negative, they did electronic drums from I think it was October Rust to Life Is Killing Me or something. There's a lot of parallels, but maybe I'm just putting that in my head because I really like Typo Negative.
You've been swayed by the dark side.
That's true. Well, like this podcast. But yeah, I was familiar with Lone After Midnight, especially this album, but actually having to sit down and really break down this album and break down a lot of their albums, I really enjoyed this one a lot more than I thought I was going to. After I like really broke it down and looked at all the other albums and just how much this album stood out for 1992. Select the Scenes from the End of the World, I really recommend it. And I think if you're into 80s goth, I think it's a great starter for Lone After Midnight. And it has a lot of really good songs. Black Cat, Revenge, Spider and the Fly, Nightmare. There's kind of just, to me, just hit after hit on it. So that's what I think. What do you think? Would you recommend it, or do you have a lesser opinion?
I would say that this is probably my second favorite album of it. Probably has some of my favorite songs. But I think the overall tone of the album, while being really good, I think like some of the problems you discussed with like the vocals and stuff kind of just detracted just enough to make it my second favorite, just by a small margin. But we'll get into my favorite album down the line.
Yeah, that's like really the only downside of this album It's not, and like I said, it's not even that bad. It just depends on your taste. It just has some things just have a really raw performance to them, and I like that, and I think it's really good. I still think it really works, but even just with the next album, we're gonna see there's a lot more mixing and a little bit of influences from something else going on. That is selected scenes from The End of the World, and I highly recommend it for all you people who, even though you won't be there with Sean Brennan, but if you like 80s goth music, like, especially, I really compare this to Phantasmagoria, but especially if you like things like Human Drama or Rosetta Stone, especially, you're going to like this album. So, that's it.
Yep.
All right, welcome to random, interesting goth stuff or recent.
You mean Riggs?
Yeah.
Welcome to Riggs, you mean?
Yeah, that's what I meant. And, of course, the top news lately, and, this isn't really goth, right? No, it's not considered, right? Because people...
Everything is considered goth as long as you don't have hope.
Oh, Jesus. But this story is about Marilyn Manson, and if you're listening to this episode later, you may not know, off the top of your head what we're talking about. What we are talking about is this stage prop, his giant stage prop, fell on him and broke his leg during a show. It's pretty bad. Actually, I think at the time we were recording this, he just posted like an update. Like he was kind of off the grid for a little bit. But during the playing of Sweet Dreams, he was kind of leaning and doing Marilyn Mansoning all over this stage prop. And he says he, like, as soon as he touched it, it started to fall over. But from the video, it's hard to see if he, like, was actually pulling on it or what. He said he was trying to stop it from falling, but then it fell on top of him.
The only thing we know for sure is that after it fell, for a few moments, the band kept playing. Now, that's dedication right there.
I think, especially with that, probably as loud as it was, they're probably like, what? He had to be, they obviously quit the show. He was put in an ambulance, and at the hospital, they took a look at his leg, and then they had to insert a plate and 10 screws into the bone.
Yeah,
and another
broke his fibula on his right leg in 2 places.
Yeah, and they also had to fix up his ankle. I guess he had hurt his ankle earlier, like a day before or something. So they did that while they were there, I guess. And now he has a cast, and they say it'll take maybe 4 months or something to heal fully. So I hope he actually stays off it, because, man, I got to tell you, whenever you have constant leg issues, that is, really annoying. So just stay off it. That's my recommendation, Marilyn Manson, if you're listening.
Yep. Get well soon. Get back to, making some music.
Some questionable music. Get back to making.
Yeah, I was a fan in high school. I'm not ashamed of it.
You weren't on the first episode of Marilyn Manson, but you're going to be on part 2.
Yeah.
Sometime soon.
I will be on part 2.
And you can talk about your history with that when we get to that.
Awesome.
But another funny thing, I don't know if it's funny or messed up or...
If it's messed up, it's probably funny.
Yeah, so many of you know that Marilyn Manson has had a beef with his old keyboardist. I think his keyboardist, Madonna and Wayne Gacy. And he doesn't like Marilyn Manson, to put it lightly. And they had this whole argument about unpaid royalties and all this stuff, and he called Marilyn Manson, faker and all this other stuff. But when this happened, he started posting to Facebook or social media, and I'm going to read you some of these things, James. I had to keep this.
Oh, you kept this under wraps from
me. I did.
Okay. I want to hear this.
It's pretty funny. Here's what he said on his updates, basically making fun of him. So I said, this is what the doctor would say. Get this man morphine, stat. Thank you, Jesus. From Marilyn Manson. He says, it's a trifecta. 1, attention for a poorly selling LP. 2, a reason to avoid the work of touring. And 3, an excuse to get pain meds.
That's pretty funny, actually.
Man crushed by feather. Details at 11.
I'd watch that news broadcast.
The best part of his article is the critically acclaimed, in quotes, 2015 album Pale Emperor.
Ouch.
Keep in mind, there's a lot more of these. I'm just kind of picking my favorite ones. I used to find him so witty. Oh, how the mighty have fallen. Now he's about as sharp as a bag of marbles. Seriously, what has he done to deserve this? I mean, besides climbing on a stage prop wasted, I guess he was close enough for my black magic to work.
I'm sensing just a little bit of hostility in these words.
This is why old, wasted people shouldn't fumble around in the dark. That's a pretty good one.
That one's actually pretty funny.
Pretty good. And anyways, if you're going to be climbing the scaffolding, shouldn't you be doing that during the song My Monkey? That's pretty good.
If the guy had this much disdain for him, as you said,
Seriously.
then like I imagine there's probably like a book full of this stuff. He's just been saving up for something like this.
Seriously.
I do like Marilyn, but it's kind of funny to hear like this smack talk.
Oh, here we go. Here's the best one. It's funny.
All right, hit me.
I forgive him, but I hope he suffers.
That sounds like
I like that.
that sounds like every one of my exes.
No kidding. Yeah, so I thought that was funny.
Pretty funny, yeah, actually.
I was like, I mean, yeah, of course you don't want anybody to be in pain or but it's like,
Yeah,
I mean,
I
he's
mean-
okay. Okay, he's
Yeah, he's not. His life's not in danger. He'll recover. And as much as I like the guy, it's always fun to hear people throw shade at other people.
exactly.
And if you really like something, you should be able to appreciate the shade being thrown at it, or be able to throw shade yourself.
Well, our second news story is Philip Anselmo, if you are not familiar with him, most famous for being the singer Pantera, and I guess, he's famous for Down, that band too. He said he's going to start a new project called N minor, E-N space minor, and it's going to be influenced by The Cure and Sisters of Mercy. And I was like, what does he mean by that? And he says, I have a record coming out that's been finished for 2 years almost. And he always he says, of course, because he works all the time and he actually runs a label. He always talks about how long it takes for things to get released because of certain legal stuff. He said, it's going to be a band called N Minor, and I guess it would be my Hello Great Dark 80s of Sisters of Mercy, of The Cure 17 Seconds record, and Faith album, early The Cure, early U2, Nick Cave, and the fucking Bad Seeds, or The Birthday Party, David Bowie. I take all these influences, and then somehow we came out with the results. It is what it is. I'll let people decide at the end of the day, and we'll see. But once again, I'm not shooting for radio time here. I'm just trying to broaden my horizons. Writing some hearkening songs, but I think they have their own life. And then he goes on and on.
I respect that.
I know. It's like,
I don't know how it's gonna turn out, but I'm interested to give that a listen.
I've heard some of his other stuff, and people always complain that his voice is shot or whatever. I don't think it is. I think it's just one of those things where I don't think anybody's voice can really be shot. I just think you have to work with what you got
Yeah.
as you get older.
I think it's maybe just lack the passion that he had when he started, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know.
And then, like he said, that he's, what you said, he's not looking for radio time. He's kind of doing a labor of love here. So maybe we'll get some, quality from this.
Yeah, I'm really hoping. So I think a long time ago on the podcast we mentioned this book, and it's this Bauhaus visual history book, Undead: The Visual History and Legacy of Bauhaus book. It got canceled. I think we even did a follow up, me and Robbie Gore. And
This is before my time.
yeah, before your time. And it was fun. It was weird because I do tons of book reviews for the YouTube, and everybody kept saying, "Oh, pick up this one," and it didn't get released. I think it's been over a year since that was even talked about, and now it is looking like it's starting pre-orders. So the site is Cleopatra Music and Times. Apparently the actual website is cleorex.com. But it's going to start pre-ordering on, of course, Halloween, Bauhaus. And so
It's too spooky for me.
it is quite expensive.
I can see the price tag from here, $70 price tag.
$70. $70 pre-order.
That better be a good book, man.
Yeah. So it's finally getting released. I haven't really heard the response from people. I got sent this by a lot of people because, obviously I reviewed David J's book, and I do reviews of all the Bauhaus albums, and I did stuff for the YouTube. So obviously I talk about Bauhaus a lot. $70 is a little rich for my blood for a book. I mean, I bought a lot of books secondhand, but I have a feeling this will be one of those books where if I don't buy it now, it'll be really expensive later. Just like I had the Art of Roz Williams up there from Singer Christian Death, and that book, the hardbound version of that, and like it's signed and stuff. Like that book goes for a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It's just one of those things because a lot of goth stuff is kind of niche. I mean, Bauhaus is probably top 5 goth band, so it's a chance of not being as crazy as other stuff. But yeah, I'm like because if I don't order it now, it may go up in price a lot. But if I do order it and then it becomes cheaper later, I'll be like, damn, I spent $70 on this book. But yeah, so this book contains, here's what it says it contains: original stories penned by Kevin Haskins, handmade flyers by the band, backstage passes, show posters, photographs from Kevin's personal collection, band artwork, set lists, contracts. Oh, that'd be cool.
That's kind of neat, actually.
Fan club material, ticket stubs, pins. Is it scans of pins? Not actual pins, right?
Maybe it's like a page made of like actual like just compressed pins. It's just like a foil page.
That'd be awesome. Yeah, I don't think so.
I don't think so, but it'd be cool.
Recording schedule, photos of vintage instruments, tour itineraries, letters, Bauhaus comic strip.
What?
And handwritten lyrics. I'm actually most interested in the Bauhaus comic strip. Interesting. But yeah. So, I mean, that's pretty cool. It's pretty cool it's getting made. Like I said, I mean, at the moment, like I just found out about this, I think it was yesterday or 2 days ago.
I just found out about it now.
Right. And I'm like excited.
Is it coming hardback or is it
Yeah, it's like a hardback book. It's cool. Look right here.
Yeah, I bought a couple books like that back in the day. Not necessarily for music, but a couple compendiums of like different artists and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's so funny. The outside of that cover reminds me of something, but I can't figure out what book it reminds me of. It's definitely something I already have.
I know. I mean, it looks
really familiar, right?
Yeah, I can't put my finger on it.
It's like this black. It's like the material, like it's black, but it's like a black hardbound book. But the material, like it looks like something. I can't figure out what it is. But if you're interested in that, you can pre-order it. Just search Bauhaus Undead: The Visual History and Legacy of Bauhaus. It's kind of, why is Bauhaus in there twice?
Because
so,
you need as much Bauhaus as you can get.
You need all that Bauhaus. So it's probably going to be a limited release, at least for right now. So October 31st, get your pre-orders in. And
do it.
Yeah, so that's our news. Of course, Marilyn Manson getting crushed by stage prop. Phil Anselmo new album, and then Bauhaus visual guide actually getting released. So thanks. Back to music. So now we are on to 1995. So 3 years later. I mean, technically, select scenes from the end of the world was recorded in 1991, but it was released in 92. So it's like 3 years later.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or not that late from their re-release in Europe, I think. Right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, when it was actually picked up by a record label, distributed. Yeah, so Psycho Magnet is 1995, and we can already see a lot of. I hear a lot of change.
Oh yeah, it sounds way more 90s. Like the last one sounded really 80s. This one sounds super 90s.
Yeah, and I think a big influence on the sound was the industrial scene, and probably I hate to just assume, but probably Nine Inch Nails was a big influence on the way the sound shifted, because there's a lot more industrial sounding stuff on here.
Oh yeah.
I think a perfect example of, if you want to hear where I think that comes from, is if you listen to the song Hate. It shows a lot of where I think London After Midnight was trying to go. It has a lot more vocal effects. It has switches from, aggressive to really slow parts. But the fast parts really remind me of like a Nine Inch Nails song. Try and picture this song, hearing it with Trent Reznor singing it, and see if that makes sense in your head. Like it's not some dramatic change. Saying that, I also really did like a lot of the songs on this album. It's not just because it sounded a little bit different than Select Scenes from the Other World doesn't mean it wasn't good.
Oh yeah, good album to be sure.
Yeah, a perfect example of another really classic song that is from this album is the song Kiss, and there's I think it's like a club version of it too that's more dancey.
Yeah, I I think Kiss might be one of my favorite songs off the album.
Yeah. Again, really industrial sound. It's still similar to the first album, the main keyboard riff, but it has, really fuzzy, distorted bass. But I will say, this is one of those things where the lyrics, I always, I select some where I thought people might find interesting or provocative. This one has the lyrics, take me, rape me, I know you love me and always will.
But I don't.
I'll always love you.
I have to sign those divorce papers.
Never gonna. Oh man.
And yet again, on the Wikipedia page for this album, genre is listed as gothic rock.
Sorry, Sean. I'm so sorry. We didn't do that.
But we would if we could.
We totally would. But you also have the weird goth thing of having like Egyptian influences.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, like obviously Sister Mercy had that with like Dominion and the whole music video for that, and Sister Mercy, Susie and the Banshees had Arabian Nights and what was the other one? Cities in Gold. That weird.
Yes, they like to walk like an Egyptian, talk like an Egyptian.
That's right. But Carry On Screaming had that kind of thing, and again, like the one of the biggest differences, other than like the kind of industrial sounding stuff on this, is the vocals are way more processed on this.
Oh yes, the vocals for me are definitely a step up from the last album, Selected Scenes from the End of the World. Definitely the vocals, as you said, sound a lot more processed, a lot cleaner than
yeah.
They kind of, like I said, the last album they kind of trail off a little bit with that kind of talking, singing.
Yeah.
This one that feels a bit more professional, which is to be expected.
Yeah.
It's finally been picked up by an actual label at this point.
Yeah. It is a little strange, it's some people I could definitely see liking the first album's vocals a little bit more, and for me they're just different. Okay.
Yeah, don't mind me, I'm just dying of the bronchitis.
Okay. But yeah, I think they're just really different. I think he got a little bit more confident singing by this album, and I think that shows. I think he took a little bit more risk with courses and kind of being a little bit more aggressive with stuff. But yeah, you have a lot, like Carry On Screaming has like super heavy vocal effects. A Letter to God has distorted vocals, but it works.
And to be honestly, I kind of appreciate the industrial influence to it, because I have like a soft spot for industrial.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like I feel like this album really benefited from like the influence of the times with industrial going on.
Yeah. There's definitely some parts where you can pick out. You're like, oh, that sounds like Mystery, or that sounds like Nine Inch Nails, or something like that. Mm-hmm. It may go deeper than that, but I didn't really hear. Lone After Midnight is on definitely more poppy. Yeah, while it's aggressive and stuff, it is very melodic. The riffs and stuff, they're very catchy. They get stuck in your head a lot, and
they won't get out.
And they, yeah, very catchy, repetitive courses and stuff. So I think doing the industrial thing works in a lot of ways, because then you kind of amp up that a little bit, but still keep it aggressive. It's hard to explain exactly.
Yeah, you can't really put it into words, but it's them taking a different step, like a different direction than their last album, and it worked.
Oh, here's a note I put. So Psycho Magnet, the actual title track, Psycho Magnet, again, like Egyptian feel, everything. But I said, here's how I describe the vocals. And I think this sums up what I thought. Bit more in your face with the lyrics.
Because that phrase is it just sums up a lot of 90s music.
Yeah.
In your face, radical.
In your face. But yeah, I think this is still a really good album. I think it's different. I don't know if it's as classic, as appealing to me as the previous album.
Well, you never forget your first time.
That's true, I think. But I will say it's still good.
Oh yeah, it's kind of like it's like having a really good sequel to a film, like where it improved on a lot of the stuff like from the original, but the original still has that breakthrough like feel of it from when it first came on the scene, which kind of elevates it above even above whatever is improved in the upcoming sequels or next albums, whatever you want to call it.
something a little bit more, has a little bit more heart in the original one that you can't really quite explain. But yeah, also when this was re-released, I do want to mention the song "Blessing." It's not on the original release, but the re-releases and stuff. You're gonna find out most copies of it now if you're buying, new ones. I will say, "Blessing" is an amazing song, absolutely amazing. It has a guest singer on it, Lore, Lore. Amazing. I love the song, love the keyboards. It's a super powerful duet, and I really recommend. I almost would recommend Psychomagnet just for that. But I do recommend Psychomagnet, but for different reasons. I think if you want a little bit heavier album, like in terms of aggression and stuff, this is it. But I will say, like, there's like one song that I thought was really interesting. I mean, outside of the, if it's good or not.
Also, for those thinking about checking out this album, there is a hidden track somewhere in this album. I'm not going to tell you where. It's up to you to find it.
Yeah. But Letter to God has just, it really reminded me of like a middle ground between the 80s and 90s. It's really spooky, reverb guitars, constant drums and bass and stuff.
Too spooky for me.
Too spooky for me. But yeah, like I said, I recommend this album for different reasons. Listen to it and make up your own mind. And that is Psychomagnet.
Yep.
Okay, so now we're going to be talking about Oddities. Also, sometimes it's printed with the live, rare acoustic, remix. I mean, it seems like online people don't really care, but the actual, if you have like a CD, then the CD booklets are printed with that. At least on the older copies, it's a mess.
It is a mess.
Yeah, so this is 1998, so it's 2 years after Psychomagnet, and this is a very appropriately named album.
Yeah, it is an oddity. At first glance, it looks like it doesn't really offer anything new, but it definitely has a couple original, in quotations, songs on there.
Yeah, so
there's a cover on there that I'm a little on the fence about. But
okay, so yeah, let's get into what this is comprised of. So there are live versions of the songs, Claire Horror, Your Best Nightmare, Letter to God.
Sacrifice.
Yeah, Sacrifice. Atmosphere is actually just like this weird like melodies and like poetry kind of thing. And then an acoustic version of Spider and the Fly, which is amazing. This is pretty much my favorite song on the album, is actually this version of the song, because I already love the song, but then this is the best version of the song.
Yeah, I think you told me that you prefer the acoustic version of this to the original.
Yeah, I'm kind of on the fence a little bit about, I would say, the original mix of the album of Selected Scenes from the End of the World. Yes, but the remastered version of Selected Scenes from the End of the World, that version of Spider and Fly is, like, I think a lot better. It's the same song, but just mixed differently. Mm-hmm. What am I saying? Now the acoustic version is better than that. Yeah, this is probably my favorite version of the song. It's amazing. I absolutely love it. I think it has a lot of heart in it. It has the right energy, and I just really enjoy it.
And then let's touch a little bit on some of the original songs that come on the album here. We've got well, not necessarily original. We have a cover of Sally's song from the Tim Burton film Nightmare Before Christmas.
Yes.
And I want to say I'm kind of half in, half out for this one. I think that the lyrics, well, not lyrics, but the vocals are fine, but you can kind of tell the guy is just basically just imitating Sally. He's just doing his best imitating Sally and swapping, he for she. But I will say the instrumentals are very nice on Sally's song.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. He is kind of adding more of an accent. Yeah, it's more of an imitation, less of an original take on it, more of a direct cover kind of thing. Does that make sense to everybody out there? It's just really imitating it. It's kind of not putting his own spin on it as much.
It's kind of like him singing it. You can kind of feel like he's trying to just imitate, whereas like when Evanescence covered it on the album Recurring Nightmares or something like that, I can't remember.
Was that one where it has like Marilyn Manson singing This Is Halloween?
Yeah, and Korn doing Let's Kidnap the Santa Claus. You could totally tell like they were singing their versions of the song.
Korn?
Yeah, Korn played Kidnap the Santa Claus, and it's And it's kind of one of my favorite ones. It's not the best one on the album, but hearing the vocalist of Korn doing like all three of the little minions and arguing with himself, like "Shut up, make me," is kind of
Wow.
funny.
That is crazy.
But like just focusing on Evanescence, when she's singing, when they're doing it and she's singing Sally's song, you can go listen to it and go, oh yeah, this is Evanescence covering this song, but it has the Evanescence feel to it. This one, it's almost like he's reading it off the paper.
I guess.
Like he's reading the notes of the direction that they gave to whoever voices Sally's singing voice, if it was a different actress or person than who did her speaking voice.
So you want a Sally after midnight, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it. All right, yeah, that makes sense to me. I mean, I still like it for what it is.
Yeah, I will say that. Yeah, it's like I'm not saying it's bad. It's just I feel like it could be more. Like Sean Brennan could have just put a little bit more of himself into this song instead of just putting Sally into the song through him.
Yeah.
But I will say the instrumentals and the sound of like the song itself is really good.
Yeah.
I give it a passing grade, but I'd say I give it a B. I give it a B. Yeah.
Oof. That's tough.
Yeah. It'd be an A if he put just a little more heart into those lyrics.
Okay. Well, he puts heart in something. I get what you're saying. And then as far as other original songs, we're including the bonus song because this was when CDs had like 70 blank tracks and then like they have a song at the end. But there's two kind of Christmassy songs. So it's literally the Christmas song, and there's the song Ice.
Yeah, Ice definitely. When you showed me that song, I thought, are we listening to a Christmas album here? Is this still London After Midnight?
Yeah, it is.
You hear like the jingle bells going in that song.
Yeah, and the Christmas song is, does have that whole like moody, wintry kind of.
That one I buy, but it's like when just listening to Ice out the gate, you feel like you're listening to a different album, like Louis Armstrong or someone who's like someone else notorious for putting out millions of Christmas albums is gonna just be like start singing like I see tree.
Yep. But I do like the Christmas song.
Oh yeah.
I think it's
fine. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. I mean, it's a weird opener. I'll say that.
Yeah, I mean, I figured the main focus of Oddities is kind of getting all the live tracks, and I feel like that's probably what we would have expected them to open with, but then we get the Christmas song instead.
Well, I'll say the Christmas song is like pretty much the instrumentation on all these songs is really good. The Christmas song is really weird because it doesn't necessarily sound like anything from the first two albums, and it doesn't sound like anything from the next album, and especially since there was such a big gap. From this album to 2007 would be the next album, because it'd be 2007 when there would be a next album. So it's kind of one of the stranger London After Midnight tracks because it's not reminiscent of really anything else.
Yeah,
it's almost like maybe that would have been the next kind of album, but there was such a delay.
Yeah, it doesn't sound anything like the first album. It definitely doesn't sound anything like the second album.
No, but speaking of the second album, Let Me Break You, it definitely sounds like something from Psycho Magnet.
Yeah.
It's pretty good. It really reminds me of the song Hate from Psycho Magnet. More industrial, kind of 90s-ish influence maybe by some other artists.
Good times.
Yeah. Of course, one of the most uncreative titles ever, Untitled.
Yeah, probably top 3 most common track name for a song, aside from maybe track followed by a number.
Yeah. Of course, The Cure famously have a song called Untitled on Disintegration. There's probably some other ones that I'm not thinking of, but I didn't like this song.
I mean, I like some of the sound from it, but it was kind of generic, really.
I think the biggest problem with it is just the vocals. It doesn't.
Yeah, it kind of suffers from the original, London After Midnight problem, where the vocals were kind of just lacking.
Yeah, it's not as talk singing as some of the songs on Scenes.
Yeah, no, it's not as much talk singing.
But it just, I don't know, it just doesn't. It's hard to describe what's wrong with the songs. I just feel like it just doesn't mix that well.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on that one.
But if you want a song that I would say is a London After Midnight song, is Demon.
Yeah, that's definitely had that London After Midnight, feel to me.
Everything about that song just to me screams London After Midnight. It's like it has the jangly guitar that he uses. It has the the kind of vocals that he usually uses, and I guess you could say like older London After Midnight because with the next album he goes
heavy industrial on that one, but
yeah.
But this had like the more original London After Midnight feel compared to some of the other songs in the albums that weren't live covers.
Exactly. And by the way, just a note on the live stuff. I wish I could. I love live albums. In fact, I've talked multiple times about. I know you weren't on those episodes, but I've talked multiple times about a lot of the Cure's live stuff, and
even I have some live albums that I care for.
Yeah, well, one of the best live albums I think is the Colts Live at Lyceum. Such a good album. I just feel like the tracks on here, the live tracks, really lack a lot of energy. I don't know if it's...
Maybe someone just flooded sleeping gas
I don't know
into that stadium or wherever it is they were performing.
Yeah, right? Well, I don't know if it's that they pulled out the audience too much or if there was an audience or, whatever. But it seems like it doesn't feel like a live performance. Like, yes, the performances are great. Like the instrumentation, the vocal, everything's great.
Yeah, it feels like a lack of audience presence.
Yeah, it's like I just wish that there was, but it just doesn't have that same energy, and that's the only problem I have with it. And I will say they're good songs, good renditions, good everything, good performances, but I want some energy from it, and I didn't get that from it.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of really missed for me because I'm really picky with my live track selection. If I'm going to listen to a live track, I like to listen to a live track done by someone who really gets the audience, involved. So that way, not necessarily like they have the audience singing like the song for them, but but you can feel the mood of the room by listening to like how the audience is just being around like these artists performing this song. Like if you listen to a live like Metallica track, you feel like all that energy.
Yeah, I mean that's a good example. Even though that Metallica's gotten really,
they're kind of dropping off. Quality.
No, I'm not gonna. Actually, yeah, we should. I'm not gonna mention.
Yeah.
I know probably some people are really big Metallica fans, so I'm not keeping up enough with Metallica to be able to.
Yeah.
Because I feel like
I haven't listened to their newest album yet, so I'm gonna withdraw my judgment until I hear their newest album.
You have a lot of albums to listen to for this podcast, so you'll never have time.
Yeah.
But yeah, Oddities honestly is just that, an oddity. I mean, it doesn't feel like a fully put together album. In my opinion.
Yeah, it feels kind of taped together.
It does. And while some of the stuff is good, I think it's all pretty good for the most part.
It's definitely passable. It's just...
Yeah. And the Spider Hair and the Fly, oh my God, acoustic. Just go listen to it.
That is the gem of the album.
Totally. And while, Christmas song and stuff and Demon, they're all good. This album is kind of okay to me.
This is an album that if you pass on the album, you're not gonna be worse off. But if you're gonna cherry pick from it, you want to pick out Spider and the Fly.
Yeah, just do Spider and Fly, Demon, and I guess Christmas song.
I guess.
Well, Let Me Break You's like it's just.
I mean, if you're a huge like Nightmare like Before Christmas fan, if you want to give Sally's song cover a chance,
yeah, that's cool. That's cool. As just a.
It's a cool thing to listen to. I mean, it's not a bad song. It's just
think about it. It was before the exploitation of that film.
Yeah, true enough. I think it could have been. Actually, I don't even remember what year that cover album came out.
I don't know. It had to be 2000s. Obviously.
Yeah, it had to be 2000s because that was like at the height of like Korn's popularity.
All
right.
And okay. Well, maybe we'll talk about that sometime, and I don't know. But okay. But that's Oddities, and it's kind of weird.
Yeah, it is as it's titled, an oddity.
Okay, so now we're on to the final album, or at least at the time we're recording, it's the most recent album that has been released by London After Midnight, and that is
Violent Acts of Beauty, which would be my favorite album of the four. Unlike Mr. Sanders.
I do not like this album that much. But yeah, this is... we'll get into that in a second. But yeah, this album was released in 2007, so that's crazy to think this album is 10 years old. But you also got to remember that the time between Oddities and this was 9 years.
Yeah, the music scene definitely changed a lot between then.
I know. And also, Sean Brennan is very vocal about his disdain for, I think, free access to music, definitely peer-to-peer sharing and stuff. I don't know how he feels about Spotify or anything like that.
Well, I'll give him one thing to smile about. At least on this one's Wikipedia page, it's not listed as gothic rock
Oh
on the
my god.
genre.
And I feel that that is appropriate because this album is very different from. I feel like I don't know. This album for me took a lot of what I liked about Psycho Magnet. It goes into. I feel like it goes even farther with the industrial stuff, but it softens it, and I didn't like it that much. But what did you like about this album?
Honestly, like when it came on, when I was listening, going through the albums at work, this one drew me in right with the first song with this very retro kind of feel on beginning of the end. It just opened up with it, and it kind of just kept going. I would say though my favorite song on this album is "Heaven Now."
Mm-hmm.
That song had like had a lot of soul in the lyrics.
Oh no, actually, that's pretty much the closest we get to the old material is Heaven Now, because it has it's like a really good power ballad kind of thing.
Though this album may be my favorite, I will say this: the song "Feeling Fascist" feels a bit on the nose to me. That is my gripe on this album.
Yeah.
One song is like I like most of this album, but like that one song, well, I'm not saying it's a bad song. It just feels the song name plus the lyrics are just a bit on the nose.
Yeah. Well, this whole album, this is what I was talking about, where I think he really isn't afraid to be political. Obviously, I mean, just look at the cover and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, and look at some of the song names, like "Feeling Fascist," "America's a Fucking Disease," "The Kids Are All Wrong."
Yeah.
Republic. It's the guy's like making a statement with this album a bit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's
like I feel like it can be a bit too political sometimes with music, but this album is it. If you just like, you don't even have to really like. I didn't really even have to like really focus on this album a lot. Like sometimes I had to focus on a lot of things on the older albums to appreciate what was good. But on this one, kind of just I could just waltz into this album and not really. I didn't really have to like really overanalyze it to be like, oh, this is real good. This is real good. It's like I just had like I listened to it. I liked it.
I mean, that's good. I mean, there's definitely albums I've talked about on the show where I've said that, where it's like, I don't know, for some reason I just connect with this album, or it's easy to listen to. I think this album does fall apart when you start to analyze it, at least in my opinion, and that a lot of the songs are, I mean, you have way more produced vocals, and a lot of songs for me just kind of sound the same. And if you like the songs, that's okay.
For me, I think the reason why I kind of like this album, it's like a hot dog. It's like if you look at what it's made of, like too closely, you're not gonna want it. But if you just shut up and enjoy the hot dog.
Did you just compare this album to a hot dog?
Yeah. What are you gonna do about it?
I don't know. I mean,
it's like if you just don't overthink it, eat the damn thing, you're gonna like it.
Is that what I don't know. I don't know how much of a recommendation that is for an album. But yeah, I mean, obviously it appeals to you in some way that it doesn't appeal to me.
Mostly it's like the sound of some of the songs just kind of like really kind of singled themselves out for me here and there. And I think I had more memorable songs like in total that I can count on like my hands, than the other albums. I'm like, oh, this album's really good, and like I really like this one song or maybe these two songs from this album. This song, it's like I can think of a few other songs like that I listened to and kind of just stuck with me.
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe not so much for the lyrics. Sometimes it could be for the lyrics. Sometimes it's for the sound. Sometimes for it's the guitar. Sometimes it's the bass. Sometimes it's a little more industrial. Sometimes it's not as industrial.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like this album kind of just it just kind of clicked on me a bit.
Yeah, at least to me, I think that the influences. I don't know if it's intentional or not, but I definitely felt like the influences from other stuff is more pronounced on this.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And I noted all this stuff while I was listening to it. It's because this is the one I had the least experience with. America's a Fucking Disease. I'm sorry, but it kind of reminded me of like a Marilyn Manson song. And it also doesn't help that Marilyn Manson, like a year later, released a song called "Armageddon Motherfucking Get In." Yeah,
love that song.
I was like, how is that song Armageddon Motherfucking Get In? Yeah, the guitar sound really reminds me of his first album, and Complex Messiah is kind of just like America's a Fucking Disease Part 2, honestly. And Republic, again, I feel like has a very Manson-y vibe. I hate to say that. I mean, because I hate comparing it, but I hear a lot of similarities, and I don't know if that was intentional or not.
Maybe that's why I liked it, because shoot me if you don't like it, but I kind of dig a lot of Manson's work.
Well, me and Robert did part 1, and we came to that determination. He's got some. Just listen to it. Just go listen to part 1 of Marilyn Manson. We're probably gonna do part 2 probably soon. Don't know
By
how
the way, if anyone has seen him now, man, he's let himself go.
Dude, I know.
It's so sad.
This is 2017 right now, man. His voice is like so shot. I mean, it's crazy.
I feel real bad because like I said, like I'm a fan of his music from I could probably pick out like at least a couple songs out of any of his albums that I like, and it's a shame seeing someone you like listening to a lot like when you were younger in high school and oh man, they're done.
Yeah, complete. Well,
he might not be. He could come back.
We'll talk about that when we do that episode. But the kids are all wrong. Like the techno dancey drums and stuff, and
that I liked "Love You to Death."
Another song by a dark goth band called "Love You to Death." Another song. Tap on a song called "Love You to Death." I should start writing this down because I know I've had at least like
we'll set up a chalkboard for
bands that have songs called "Love You to Death."
Yeah, we'll get a pie chart going.
So many bands that have that title for song. It's ridiculous. But honestly, like, I just found this album a little repetitive, and I just found myself not liking it as much. And I hate to say, and I found a review that I think summed up my thoughts on this. I forget where I got this from. It's on my notes, but so I got it from somewhere. It said, "It's not a bad album, more mainstream than the older ones, but when you listen to it carefully, you see that there's something missing." And, you may not feel that way, but I felt that way, unfortunately.
I mean, I'm not going to disagree. Like, it is missing some of the feel, like, from the other
a little bit more of the
but like
personality.
It's like I said, it's like a hot dog, really. Like, you don't want to really overanalyze the ingredients, but if you like how a hot dog tastes, you like how a hot dog tastes.
Man, so many of our listeners are vegan and vegetarians, so they're probably not gonna like this album.
Well, fight me.
Probably will. They're all.
It's all right.
Kidding me? You gonna fight a goth audience? They're gonna be.
It's all right. If they don't like all that meat, they're not gonna get a lot of protein. So I think I have the advantage.
Oh my gosh. That's so weird. How do we get off on this tangent? But yeah, honestly, like I'm not gonna recommend this album just because I didn't like it, but obviously, you recommend it in your own way, and you obviously enjoyed it. I mean, that's all that matters.
Yeah, it's like it's kind of like the same with.
Except you're wrong.
Yeah,
but
yeah, well, music, just like movies, you can enjoy a bad movie and like it be one of your favorite movies. Just like you can enjoy like a bad album and have it be one of your favorite albums.
Yeah.
Because, just something about a song, whether it's not as good as the original, not could just click with you. And like I found like the kind of more upbeat tempo some of these songs kind of really drew me in. When like I said, I listened to a lot of these albums while I was at work, and like the last one, Oddities, was just kind of just droned on for me. And kind of just was a real slow album to get through. This one kind of sped up for me.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that makes sense.
It's not the best album I'm gonna say, but I'm gonna say it's my favorite.
You're gonna defend it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay.
So try that hot dog.
Yeah. But okay, so that's the most recent album. I mean, it's 10 years ago was the most recent album by London After Midnight. I do want to say, the updates that we have on a new release from London After Midnight. Sean Brennan posted on Sean Brennan's official Facebook, not the London After Midnight. It's really weird. He has there's a London After Midnight one, but then there's official Sean Brennan one. And the Sean Brennan one posts more than the London After Midnight one.
God, make up your mind, man. I
know. That's always tough. I know, when artists have whenever the personality, it's kind of like how Trent Reznor could have his own thing, but it's like Nine Inch Nails is you're like, oh, that's Trent Reznor's official Facebook, but then it's then if Trent Reznor had his own Facebook, but I don't, well, who am I gonna say? I'm not the one running the whatever, but on Sean Brennan's official Facebook, on May 8th, there was he posted a picture from late 2016 in a different studio recording new London After Midnight music for new release and the second Oddities with Izara String Quartet. So
Okay, you had me, and then you lost me when you said second Oddities.
I know, right?
That dashed my hopes a little bit.
So he posted a picture in May on his Facebook.
Not that kind of picture.
Oh.
Get your minds out of the gutters.
Well, posted a picture on his Facebook that was from last year saying that he's working on a new album and a second Oddities release.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
I know, that's complicated, right?
Hope restored.
Yeah. So
as soon as you said second Oddities, I'm like, maybe not.
yeah,
The
so
first one didn't really win me over.
yeah, so we're gonna have hopefully 2 releases. It's been slow. It's like a trickle for new stuff, and there's videos of him, like little snippets of him digitizing stuff on his YouTube. Which by the way, London After Midnight have official video releases. They need to put them on YouTube, man.
Yeah, get with the times, Brennan.
All the stuff, I hate to say it, but yeah, I actually agree. I think that there's very few London After Midnight things on YouTube, and very few, in fact, that bootleg VHS tape I have over there is one of the only concerts of London After Midnight that is like available and is on YouTube. It's like from 1995 or something like that. Like there's no footage from earlier than that. As far as I know, I haven't seen, I may get a flood of, people send me videos from, earlier than that, but I haven't really seen much earlier than like 94, 95 for material. And Innocence Lost VHS tape, that has that's an official release. So why doesn't Sean Brennan just take that, upload it, maybe, just up the contrast from a VHS tape or whatever source, and just post it to YouTube? I mean, there is official London After Midnight video stuff.
It's not hard, Brennan. Anyone can do it.
I don't know. I get really frustrated by that kind of stuff because it's like,
do it, Brennan. Donnie will fight you.
I guess I'm gonna. Oh Jesus, no, I will not.
We're selling tickets now.
Oh Jesus.
The Professor versus Brennan.
Man.
Saturday night, ringside. The fate of YouTube rests in the balance.
Gonna be held after midnight in London. It's gonna
the fight actually takes place after midnight in London.
It's gonna be broadcast across Goth places. You could say it was GothCasted. Sorry, that was weird. But yeah, I don't know. I guess it's the archivist in me. I think that he should take all the stuff out there. I think he should be making videos all the time talking about London After Midnight. There's very few interviews. There's very few video interviews with Sean Brennan. I obviously through this episode, I pulled interviews and stuff from lots of places. There's lots of magazine interviews.
Maybe he's like some kind of weird like machine like man, and he doesn't want people to know.
That might be true, man. He's pretty. He's pretty beautiful. There we go. That makes sense. But yeah, I wish that there was more London After Midnight stuff, in my opinion. Because the albums and music, like I said, I mean, they're really good. In fact, actually going in this episode, I thought taking an in-depth look at London After Midnight, I might be a little bit more disappointed. But I mean, the first 2 albums really got me, and I think they're actually, especially the first album, it's like Scenes from the Other One. I think the album's a totally underrated classic. I really do. But I wish that Sean Brennan would post more and talk more about his music, because everybody knows that the more stuff is out there, the more information there is about like an album, the more information there is about an artist, it helps get people more involved with them. If they're talking to their audience more often, or they're talking about the specific releases, and people love the stories behind like how albums were recorded, and seeing an artist speak about their history. And well, it's kind of like that thing you go to a concert and everybody's like, play the old stuff.
Even more fun than that is finding out how artists came up with their names.
Yeah, I know. Well,
there's some funny stories in those out there.
This one's cool because it's named after like a lost film. I like that. I guess that's kind of my tangent over on the whole thing. But that's London After Midnight. Of course, you heard our recommendations and stuff, and hopefully some new stuff coming soon. I might do a review and talk about it sometime if it ever comes out. Is what I mean.
Yep.
This has been episode 44 of GothCast. I am Dr. Sanders.
And I'm good old Jimmy Radio Face.
Do not call yourself Jimmy Radio Face.
No, it's a one-time thing.
No, won't happen again.
Never again.
Yes, that's James.
Yeah, this was James.
This is second episode. Obviously, you're very comfortable on the podcast after one episode. Good choice.
Yep. It really helps that I can just sit here in like this, skin tight outfit and just no one judges me.
I like it. It's yeah.
Very flattering.
Yep. So, of course, you can check GothCast out on Facebook, Instagram, Tumblr, and the one that I ignore the most is Twitter.
And if you can find it, AOL.
Find us on our AOL message board. But yeah, also I come out with video content on GothCast Video.
Not that kind of video.
And of course, and then I just made a podcast archive channel specifically for YouTube. If you go to the GothCast YouTube and you go to like the little recommended channels thing, you know how like YouTube channels, it'll say GothCast Podcast Archive, and you can find literally all 43 of our other episodes, and then this one would be up there as well. Because people always have been complaining to me to put the podcast on YouTube because people like to just listen to stuff on YouTube, just the easiest way. So we have the GothCast Podcast Archive on there. But if you want to see like my goth music collection or me review some stuff, look up GothCast on YouTube, and you see the pasty-faced, big-haired guy. That's me.
That is you.
Yeah. Well, all right. Make sure to stay spooky.